we do have some questions here, Ian, and you were just talking about four tasks that Rudolf Steiner had. So
Yes.
could you just summarize that for a moment?
Okay, yes. First task, he proved philosophically that there is no limit to human cognition. And what he wanted to do was to uh, prove that Immanuel Kant's theory that we can never know the thing in itself, we can only know the thing, is incorrect. Well, Kant is actually correct if we only use our intellect. That's correct. But human cognition has other opportunities, namely intuitive knowing, which can go through the boundaries of phenomena into the thing in itself, noumena, which is Kant's own words. Second thing was, how do you develop the human instrument of knowing so that its intuitive capacities become stronger and greater? And he wrote books and gave lectures on this path of self-transformation, which is a type of modern yoga. And thirdly, how do you use intuition to research and explore noumena, the higher dimensions of reality? And unfortunately, there's a big gap there because he didn't give dedicated series of lectures about this, though he did have pupils. And if you're someone who's developed some of these capacities and spends decades doing the study, you can find methods that he described eventually. Also, it's possible to ask these questions of other beings in the spiritual world and be given answers when your intuitive capacity is sufficient. Fourth task of Rudolf Steiner was to use his own cognitive, intuitive capacities to enter into deeper reality so as to help other people work in culture to improve human and natural nature's condition. Biodynamics, world of education, anthroposophical medicine, architecture. It goes on and on and on. Meetings that he had, someone he met and talked to about making a new type of plasticine, and they formed a whole business out of it. And I've actually seen some of that plasticine, which is 100 years old, and it's still soft. So there are just hundreds of
Hmm.
conversations he had. Kandinsky and Rudolf Steiner had conversations. Kandinsky studied knowledge of higher worlds and considered it helped him move into non-representational art. So he had lots of meetings and was a very social person.
Hmm.
Anyway, those were his four tasks. And in the modern times, task two, how do you develop the instrument of knowing? That needs some further input and organization to be readily available. And how do you do spiritual scientific research that needs its own new presentation? I'm working on a book which has the second to last chapter. It's called I Am My Own App, which is what we can be with advanced intuitive senses.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. That really clarifies the four tasks of Rudolf Steiner. Now, when we look at the seminar now, what kind of steps are we taking there, or how far can we go, or do you go in a weekend seminar?
Yes, yes. Well, my main aim of the seminars is to save people 20 or 30 years. So I think that makes it worthwhile because I, I, yeah, I spent a long time working out how to do this entering into noumena. And in my 20s, I could already do it. but I had no system, had no method, and I hadn't developed myself sufficiently. And so when you have techniques, it makes a big difference. So it's a bit like learning how to play the cello. If you get given a cello with a bow, but the bow's not tight and the cello has got strings lying on a table beside it, what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to play Bach solo sonatas? No, no. You might get the bow and tap the back of the cello and think, oh, I'm doing pretty well. Some nice rhythms there. But what we need is to know the instrument, our own instrument of knowing, which is our human being in its completeness, multidimensional state, and to have some advice and guidance. And then we can start playing. And so the seminar is intended to be a weekend introduction to supply the basic techniques and experiences so that the person can continue into the future. And out of the 1,500 people I've taught so far, quite a few of them have continued practicing, and I get sent messages on WeChat or WhatsApp asking questions as they start using this in everyday life. So the steps are, first one, how do we develop our instrument of knowing? And that's setting out a path of self-transformation that leads to the birth of the higher self. And then the second step in the seminar is to free our awareness, which is the light of knowing, out of its submergence within consciousness. And in short, that light of knowing is the part of our mind which notices what's going on in the mind. So in the Upanishads from ancient India, 3,000 or more years ago, the answer to that question is know the knower. That's the key to the keyhole into the door that opens up into deeper reality. Know the knower. Who's doing the noticing in your consciousness? So that's the next step. We have some practices. You don't have to meditate for 10 years in a cave. You can get there in half an hour. And then then we practice sending our light of awareness, which is a sense of knowing, into the noumena, the inner life and being of plants, so that we can have a direct experience of this. I had a woman in her 80s attend one of my seminars in England who had practiced fundamental exercises as suggested by Rudolf Steiner for 60 years. And she came up to me after it was just a 2-hour seminar. She came up after this workshop and she said, I saw these colors around the plants and I was discussing some questions with the plants and I saw some beings all around it. Was I dreaming? And I was like, was it surprising? Was it fresh? Did you notice whether you generated the thoughts? No. She said, yes, it was surprising and fresh, but she was sure she hadn't generated it. And that's a sure sign that it's intuitive knowing. So fantasy, memory, intuitive knowing, each have certain qualities. And when you get used to noticing what's going on in your mind, you can tell the differences between them as easily as a conductor can tell the difference between a violin, a bassoon, and a flute. And so that's part of the cognitive proprioception, finding your way through. So we do that. Next part of the seminar is we do the same thing with rocks and crystals. And we discover these are very different beings and they have a different language and they have different aspects to teach us. So that's as a practice. And then there are a variety of other things we can do as the fifth step in the seminar is to practice sending awareness to areas that we know absolutely nothing about. And discovering then, if you're a group of 20 or 30, and then you discuss and share, you discover that often 80% will have similar experiences which you can build up, and it becomes a self. It boosts the confidence that you're dealing with reality. To be able to work in a group is wonderful like that. So that would be the aim of the seminar, and at the end of it, to come out of it going, wow, I'm much more than I thought I was. My cognition is able to enter into the inner life and being of things. Teilhard de Chardin said, for all the outer, everything has an inner. So it's not just Rudolf Steiner, this is everywhere in the world, all the different cultures. You know, he was a Roman Catholic priest who was forbidden to publish his works until after his death. For every outer, there is an inner. And it's true, but human cognition can know this directly as a direct experience, not as a thought. This is the difference between the intellect and intuition. Intuition takes you there to experience it directly. Your own thoughts and feelings, your own inner experience of being yourself is not a thought. It's an actuality. It's a fact. So if you can go in and become an iris and know it as well as you know yourself, then we know our own noumena, our thoughts, our feelings, our will impulses, our energy, our state of mind. We know it. So we can know noumena by noticing our own mind. But with spiritual science or yoga of love or any way of freeing awareness truly, you can enter into and become the iris and become the rose and discover they're very different. This is what Rudolf Steiner could do very, very well. So he could he could give lectures on bees and say what was going on with their chemistry when they were flying up in the sky, when the drones were chasing the queen. How do you do that in the early 20th century with awareness?
Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful. It sounds like a real adventure that
yes.
people are going on who are participating in the seminar. Yeah.
So
there's
a
whole lot packed into a very short amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the seminars I've run in China have been 10-day seminars and 60 or 80 people. Mm-hmm. And we really make a lot of progress.
Yeah.
But the aim is also after a seminar, maybe form a group, and then the group can meet every month or so and report on their practices and their methods and how they're working. Because, coming back again, this anthroposophy is a way of knowing, spiritual science is a way of knowing, not a body of knowledge, which helps us do good things. Of course, we want those as well, but we mustn't miss out the heart of it.
Yeah.